Well, hello again. And this time I'm coming to you from a darkened hotel room in Newcastle upon Tyne. It's the Hilton Hotel. According to the lift, I'm on floor 5, which is executive guest rooms. Apparently this means that I get the world's noisiest aircon, currently switched off because it's just too noisy to it would record as much as my voice would, I think. And also somebody battering away on pipes in the next room, although they seem to have gone quiet at the moment, so I'm grabbing the opportunity to try and record this. Finding myself in Newcastle yesterday, I sort of launched off into a bit of a nostalgia trip and dug out a live album by Emerson, Lake and Palmer called Pictures at an Exhibition, recorded 50 years ago in the City Hall at Newcastle, where I will be later on, and bought by me when it was released at the end of 1971, and disposed of fairly quickly. Let's get some background here. Emerson, Lake and Palmer were, I suppose, the major supergroup in British progressive rock. Supergroup being a term I would use to describe a collection of people from successful groups who got together and formed a new band, which became immediately successful on the basis of the reputations that had already built up. ELP, the name was Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Keith Emerson was the keyboard player from perhaps the original classically oriented prog rock group The Nice. Greg Lake had been the vocalist and bassist in King Crimson, and Carl Palmer had been drummer with another keyboard-led band, Vincent Crane's Atomic Rooster, who had had a couple of major hits with The Devil's Answer and Tomorrow Night. Put together, they immediately launched off on a very progressive style of music with a lot of classical covers and influences built in. Their first two albums were very successful. For their third album, they released this live set, which was based on a set of compositions written in the late 19th century by the Russian composer Modest Mussorgsky. Mussorgsky had constructed a suite based around the idea of someone walking around an exhibition of paintings. Each piece was in the collection was given the title of one of the paintings and supposedly evoked what you could see in the picture. There was also a theme referred to as promenade, which was to convey the idea of the visitors to the exhibition walking around from one picture to the next. The reason why I dispensed with this album fairly quickly is that at the time when it came out, I was actually studying Mussorgsky's score for the piece. A small aside here, most people are familiar with Pictures at an Exhibition as an orchestral piece, orchestrated by French composer Maurice Ravel. In fact, the original piece is for solo piano. Mussorgsky was, for various reasons, very apprehensive about orchestrating his work and preferred to write a piano solo. So I was, at the time, very familiar with the score, and to be honest, I didn't think Emerson, Lake and Palmer made much of it. For a start, they abandoned most of it. They only really covered 4 pieces from a suite of maybe 16 pieces. They used the promenade link here and there. They used the opening piece of the Gnome, and the last 2 pieces, the Hut of Baba Yaga and the Great Gates of Kiev. But in between, they put in a song for acoustic guitar, written by Greg Lake, which had nothing to do with the exhibition at all, and a lengthy blues jam entitled Blues Variations on the record. But, that's giving a classical label to something that is essentially a blues jam. And the whole thing ended with one of perhaps the original classical rock piece, Nut Rocker, which was an adaptation of a theme from Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker ballet, written in the early 60s, I think, by Kim Fowley. The rest is... It's an important album, I suppose, because it represents the most thorough, full-length attempt to put together a collection of classical music and combine it with progressive rock. Progressive had a very strong element of classical influence, shall we say, especially the idea of writing things in long-form pieces. But with pictures, Emerson, Lake and Palmer actually had a bit of a go at a genuine classical composition. And on the whole, I didn't think they managed to sustain it very well. There are points where it's charming, and there are points where it has great nostalgic interest for me. It was recorded 50 years ago, good grief. It makes me feel old listening to it. And just thinking that I was a teenager when I bought this thing, and now 50 years have passed. Good grief, whatever happened to it all? So, I listened to it again yesterday, sitting here in the room in Newcastle. Enjoyed it well enough, but not too great. I then moved on to Emerson, Lake and Palmer's next album, released in 1972, entitled Trilogy. Now, at the time, I didn't buy this record. I got to know it a couple of years later. A friend had a copy, and I heard it being played and borrowed it and made a cassette tape of it, and became fairly familiar with it. On the whole, it's a much stronger record, I think. It may well be their strongest, the band's strongest record. Many people like the first album. I've never been a big fan. Trilogy puts together classical styles, improvisation, the band's own style of rock, and achieves a pretty good blend across the board, with some fairly interesting ideas and some pretty strong material. On the whole, a record more worth listening to than pictures, I would have said. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And then to finish off the nostalgia session, I went back to earlier in 1971 and the band's second release, Tarkus, which I did buy as an album at the time, and I thoroughly loved the 20-minute piece, which takes up the first side of the album. There you go, your classical extended composition thing again. As a piece of themed music, it appears to be about the adventures of a robotic, malevolent armadillo armed with guns, which kind of trucks around a post-apocalyptic landscape, shooting up everything in sight. Not the greatest of ideas, is it actually what the music's about at all? That's what the cover art is about. Don't know whether the music's really about that at all, but I found it a very satisfying, especially Emerson's organ playing. Emerson's Hammond organ on the album is bold, imaginative, very interesting, still quite intriguing to listen to. Really rather enjoyed it. And that's it, really. Emerson, Lake and Palmer, very much part of my past. It's not something I go back to much. I'd be surprised if I listened to them again much in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. But here I was in Newcastle yesterday, and I had a great time with it. So I'm just passing on my vague thoughts about it all to you here. Time to go. I will append some links to the album, so for those who don't know the music, you can go straightforwardly to YouTube and check it out for yourselves if you wish. If you don't, that's good as well. And I'll be back with some of these as and when internet capability allows, I suppose, and as and when I can think of something that I want to talk about. Meanwhile, all the best to everybody. Hope everyone's well. Speak soon. Bye.